In response to Billy's Talking Points memo from September 24th, 2015, the biggest smear in the presidential campaign to date. Now, Billy is talking about three things here. I'm going to bring up three things in reference to this. But Billy does the old slip, slide, slim as he moves away and helps out his buddy. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the head of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, basically indicated that on Yom Kippur night, Marco Rubio, presidential candidate, went to the house of Harlan Crow. And Harlan Crow has a huge house and has a lot of memorabilia, a lot of artifacts in there, a lot of museum type stuff, and some of it has to deal with the Third Reich, signed autograph of Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler himself, and she went on to tear him up for doing all of this stuff. And of course, Billy says that that's the biggest smear of the campaign, that she's a loser and that she doesn't know what she's talking about and she should resign. Now, I'll leave that up to you. I'm not really the greatest fan of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but she does bring up a very valid point. And that valid point is that it is Yom Kippur night. The guy has a tremendous amount of this stuff. That's not saying that he's an anti-Semite or that he's a big Nazi kind of guy. It's basically not smearing, but going after Rubio and Rubio's campaign team for being so stupid that they didn't even check out what was going on ahead of time in terms of going to this guy's place and see how it might look. Because, going to a place like that on the outside, doesn't seem as if that would be too smart an idea for a presidential contender. On any other given night, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But it was on the night of Yom Kippur. Now, so this is what Billy does, and this is what Billy does great. So he takes the situation and he reverses the whole thing, and he goes out and attacks Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and then he brings on Rubio, who's already been rehearsed on how to defend himself on the whole type of thing. But the big thing about this was, again, this really wasn't about smearing Marco Rubio. This really was about the fact that Marco Rubio's staff didn't know what they were doing and didn't know how bad this could possibly look. Now, in the greater scheme of things, it doesn't mean dick, because from a technical standpoint, you're not going to get any Jewish votes heading towards Marco Rubio, because most Jewish votes are for Democrats. Now, that's not to say he might do very well. He might might do well in Florida, where there's a large Jewish population, large Spanish population, large retired population. So that may play into effect. But there is a lot of hypocrisy here, because let's go into a couple things. Harlan Crow, the guy whose house they were having it at, he's a big-time Republican. He has a lot to deal. He's given money or sits on the board of both Club for Growth and the American Enterprise Institute, two very, very, very right-wing organizations. Apparently, he's a friend to Clarence Thomas. He has a son, I can't remember, but they have some type of relationship. He also gave Clarence Thomas's wife $500,000 for whatever right-wing PAC or group she was starting to have. So he's big-time Republican, big-time on the right, big money man. Now, where did he get his money? He got it from Daddy. Now, if I was in his situation, I'd probably do the same thing. But, God, I dealt with Tamara Crow in the early 80s, so they had already started to expand well out of Texas at that time. Huge, real estate, property management, builder, construction, whatever, probably a whole host of them. And Harlan took over the dad's business, been running it, making all kinds of money, and has a 34,000 square foot house. I've seen some pictures of stuff on the inside. Yes, it does look like it's coming right out of Westminster Abbey, or wherever the Queen sits in England. really very strikingly, tastefully, beautifully done with incredible amount of money that was put in. But he's got the money, and I'm sure that he gives a lot to charity also in his own way. But again, he's a big-time Republican. He also has a strange thing. He went over to the Eastern Bloc countries after the fall of the fall of the USSR, and brought back a lot of statues of Stalin and Lenin and a lot of other people, maybe even some of Hitler, sitting in his backyard. I don't know what fascination he has with all of that, but he's got all that stuff. But the thing is, and I want to bring up a third point about all this. This is the funny point, is that, again, I'm not saying Debbie Wasserman Schultz was all wrong and all that. She might have said it a little bit far too more bluntly than I might have said it. But Billy's reaction is to smear her, to defend Harlan Crow, and to get Rubio back on, which was basically a snafu on the part of Rubio's staff, who didn't take a look around and say, hey, this might be not the right date for us to do all this thing. But let's bring in another thing. Now remember, when Billy's show, he talks about how there are some memorabilia in there, a signed copy of Mein Kampf by Hitler himself, and some other Nazi stuff, museum type stuff, let's just say, and that's fine. But does it mean he's an anti-Semite? No, who knows if it does or not. But let's remember, in Billy's last book, I don't even know what his last one was, but the one on Patton, maybe his second to last one. I never read them anyway. But his second to last one on Patton, there's been many books written on Patton, and we still have copies of his handwritten letters to his wife when he was over there. Big anti-Semite, smeared him all the time. And of course, after Patton after the war was over, he was in charge of, I don't know if you want to call it refugees, but dealing with some of the internment camps, and helping these Jewish people who are in the internment camps, feed them, clothe them, try and get them back to health, etc. At the same time, he's referring to them as animals, heathens, etc. Now, let's remember this, though. Bill O'Reilly didn't even mention that in his book. Didn't mention that at all, because he only wants to have the hero. We want our hero right here. He doesn't want to talk about the faults of the guy. So that's what you're getting from Billy all the time. Not fair and not balanced.